My wife told me she was staying late at work. Suspicious, I installed a hidden camera in our house. The next day, I watched the footage. My best friend walked in, smirking. My wife whispered, "He'll never know." My friend said, "He already does." I called his phone, and he froze. I never thought I would be here, writing this. I don't even know what I expect to get out of it. I guess I just need to get it out of my head because if I don't, I think it's going to eat me alive. I've been married to my wife, Laura, for 15 years. We met in college, fell hard, and did everything right, or at least, that's what I thought. We got good jobs, bought a house, planned for the future. We weren't perfect, but we were solid. Or at least, I thought we were. Lately, things had been off. It started small. Little things. She started staying late at work more often. That wasn't unheard of. She worked as a news editor, and deadlines could be brutal. But it was happening a lot. Then she started taking her phone everywhere. Even the bathroom. It was always face down on the table. She was different, too. Distant. Distracted. Some nights, she would get into bed, roll over, and be asleep in seconds, like she couldn't wait to turn away from me. I tried to ignore it. I told myself I was overthinking. I reminded myself that I trusted her. That's what you do in a marriage. You trust. But something wasn't sitting right. One night, I asked her if she wanted to go out for dinner, just the two of us. She hesitated. Said she was tired. I let it go, but I noticed how she spent the next hour texting someone, smiling at her phone. The next morning, I checked her car's mileage before she left for work. Just to see. When she got home that night, it was almost 20 miles higher than her office was from our house. That was it. That was the moment something inside me snapped. I needed to know. I ordered a small hidden camera online. The kind that looks like a phone charger. When it arrived, I felt sick even opening the box. It wasn't me. I wasn't the kind of guy who did things like this. But I did it anyway. I placed it in our bedroom. It had motion detection, so it would only record when someone was in the room. I told myself I'd check it in a few days. I hoped I'd find nothing, that I was being paranoid. The next night, Laura said she had to stay late again. I told her okay. Gave her a kiss on the cheek. Told her I'd see her later. She smiled at me like normal. Lied to my face like normal. She left. I waited an hour, then went into my office and pulled up the camera feed. At first, it was just hours of nothing. Then the motion detector kicked in. The bedroom door opened. My best friend, Adam, walked in. I felt my stomach drop. I stopped breathing. My body went ice cold. Laura walked in right after him. She looked up at him, smiling. Then she whispered something. "He'll never know." Adam smirked. "He already does." I almost threw up. I sat there, frozen, staring at the screen. My hands were shaking. My ears were ringing. I didn't even think. I grabbed my phone and called Adam. The second his phone started ringing, I saw it happen on the screen. He looked down at his pocket. His smirk disappeared. Laura turned to him, wide-eyed. The call rang twice before he answered. "Hey, man," he said. He sounded normal. Casual. But on the screen, he looked like a deer in headlights. I didn't say a word. Neither did he. I could hear Laura whisper something, but I couldn't make it out. Then Adam hung up. I watched as he turned to her and whispered, "He knows." Laura ran out of the room. I don't remember standing up. I don't remember grabbing my keys. But the next thing I knew, I was in my car, speeding towards Adam's house. I must have hit 80 on the highway. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so hard they hurt. I could barely think. When I pulled up to his house, his car was gone. I sat there, staring at the empty driveway, my heart pounding. I didn't know what I was going to do if I saw him. I just knew I had to do something. I checked my phone. 3 missed calls from Laura. I ignored them. Then I turned around and drove home. When I got there, she was already inside. She was sitting on the couch, her hands shaking in her lap. Her eyes were red. She had been crying. "You saw," she whispered. I didn't answer. I just stood there, staring at her. She took a deep breath. "Ethan, Don't, I said. She closed her mouth. I walked past her, sat down in the chair across from her, and folded my hands. My voice was eerily calm. How long? She hesitated. Then, in the quietest voice I'd ever heard, she said, 2 years. I inhaled sharply. It felt like someone had just kicked me in the chest. 2 years. I felt stupid. Like a joke. Like the punchline to something everyone else already knew. I clenched my jaw so hard my teeth hurt. You were ever going to tell me? I asked. She swallowed hard. No. I closed my eyes. That answer hurt more than anything. We sat in silence for what felt like hours. Then, finally, she stood up. I'll pack a bag, she whispered. I nodded. She walked down the hall to our bedroom, the same bedroom I had watched her betray me in. I listened to her moving around. The sound of drawers opening and closing. The sound of zippers. Then, finally, the sound of the front door opening and closing. She was gone. I sat there in the silence. And then, for the first time in my life, I cried. I don't know how long I sat there after she left. Minutes. Hours. Maybe longer. The house felt different. Like a crime scene. The air was heavy, thick with something I couldn't name. I could still smell her perfume in the room. It made my stomach turn. I wanted to smash something. Throw a chair. Punch a hole in the wall. But I didn't. I just sat there, staring at nothing, my mind replaying that moment over and over again. He'll never know. He already does. The way Adam had smirked. The way she had whispered it like it was some inside joke. My name wasn't even a thought in her mind, just some obstacle they had stepped over a long time ago. I reached for my phone. My fingers hovered over Adam's contact. I wanted to call him. Scream at him. Demand answers. But I knew if I heard his voice, I wouldn't be able to control myself. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. But something told me to pick up. I put it on speaker. Who is this? Silence. Then a voice I didn't recognize. Is this Ethan? I frowned. Yeah. Who's this? A deep breath. Then, I think my wife is having an affair with your wife. I sat up straight. What? The man on the other end hesitated. I don't know you. But I think our spouses are involved. My heart started pounding again, but for a different reason. Who's your wife? I asked. Another pause. Then he said a name I didn't recognize. Melissa. I closed my eyes. My head was spinning. I found messages, he continued. On her work laptop. I wasn't snooping. She left it open. My name is James, by the way. I work in IT, so I know what I'm doing. I pulled up everything. The texts. The emails. Even deleted ones. I swallowed hard. What did they say? Meet me. I'll show you. Every instinct in my body told me this was crazy. Meeting up with a stranger. But nothing about my life was normal anymore. I needed to know. I agreed. We met at a coffee shop downtown. It was late, and the place was nearly empty. When I walked in, I spotted him immediately. A guy in his mid-40s, short-cropped dark hair, tired eyes, hands wrapped around a coffee cup like it was the only thing keeping him grounded. I sat across from him. Neither of us spoke for a few seconds. Then he pulled out a USB drive and slid it across the table. Everything's on there, he said quietly. I picked it up. How bad is it? He exhaled through his nose. Worse than you think. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. How long? At least 3 years. I gripped the edge of the table. My breathing was uneven. He gave a bitter laugh. Guess I win, huh? I didn't laugh. I just shook my head. You should check it yourself, he said. I made copies, in case she tries to delete anything. I thought about confronting her first, but... He trailed off, staring down at his coffee. I knew exactly how he felt. We sat there in silence. Two men who had just realized their entire marriages had been a lie. Before I left, he grabbed my wrist. Ethan, he said, his voice low. I found something else. I looked at him. The emails. Some of them were coded. I don't think it was just about them. I frowned. What are you saying? He lowered his voice even more. I think they're hiding something bigger. I stared at him. Like what? He hesitated. Then said something that sent ice straight through my veins. Money. I blinked. What? James ran a hand through his hair. I don't know, man. It's weird. There are emails with numbers. Transfers. Bank accounts. Some of them don't make sense. A sinking feeling started in my gut. What kind of numbers? He pulled out his phone and opened an email. Turned the screen toward me. It was a message from Laura to his wife. It looked harmless at first. But then I saw it. A series of bank transfers. Large ones. Under different names. My stomach twisted. What the hell is this? I whispered. James shook his head. I don't know. But I think we just found something we weren't supposed to. I stared at the screen. My wife, was involved in something bigger than I ever imagined. Affairs were one thing. But this? This was something else. I sat there staring at James' phone screen, my breath coming in short, shallow bursts. The numbers didn't make sense, but I knew one thing, this wasn't just about the affair anymore. Laura wasn't just lying to me, she was hiding something bigger. I forced myself to speak. How much money are we talking about? James swallowed hard. Hundreds of thousands. Maybe more. A sick feeling curled in my stomach. I felt like I had been punched in the gut, but I couldn't afford to be frozen now. I clenched my jaw. Where's the money going? James hesitated. I don't know. Some of the accounts are offshore. I ran a trace on a few of them, but then, I stopped. Why? His face paled. Because I don't think we're the only ones looking into it. My body went cold. You think someone else is onto them? He nodded. I saw some flagged transactions. One of them was marked under a federal inquiry. It's buried deep, but if you know what you're looking for. He exhaled sharply. Someone's watching them. I rubbed my face. My mind was spinning. This wasn't just a betrayal. This was something dangerous. I pocketed the USB drive. We need to confront them. James let out a humorless laugh. And say what? Hey, we know about the affairs and the illegal money transfers. He shook his head. They'll deny everything. Then we don't give them the chance. James frowned. What are you thinking? I pulled out my phone. We do it in public. The next night, I called Laura. I told her I wanted to talk. That I needed closure. She hesitated, but agreed to meet me at a restaurant we used to go to all the time. James called his wife, Melissa, and told her the same thing. She agreed too. The four of us met at a quiet steakhouse downtown. Laura looked wary but composed. Melissa seemed nervous. James and I were barely keeping it together. We ordered drinks. We let them think this was just an emotional conversation. That we wanted to talk about what went wrong. Then James pulled out his phone and slid it across the table. Want to explain this? Laura's face drained of color. Melissa's lips parted slightly, then shut. Neither of them spoke. I leaned forward. How long were you planning to keep this from us? My voice was calm, too calm. I could feel the anger pressing against my ribs, but I held it in. Laura opened her mouth. Ethan, I cut her off. Don't lie. Not now. She swallowed. Her hands were shaking. Where did you get this? That's what you care about. James snapped. Not that we found out, but how? Melissa finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. It's not what you think. James let out a bitter laugh. Oh, so you weren't committing fraud while screwing around? Laura flinched. It's not like that. Then explain it to me, I said. She hesitated. Then she looked at Melissa. They shared a glance. Laura took a shaky breath. It started small. I clenched my jaw. Define small. She licked her lips. We found a loophole. At work. A way to move money around without it being traced immediately. James' hands curled into fists. You mean stealing? Laura winced. No. Not exactly. We weren't taking from real people. It was just corporate funds. Unused money. The kind that big companies don't even notice is missing. Melissa spoke up. And then Adam found out. Everything inside me turned to stone. I stared at Laura. Adam knew. She closed her eyes. He was the one who helped us make it bigger. I felt the ground shift under me. James shook his head, laughing darkly. Jesus Christ. This just keeps getting better. Laura reached for my hand. I pulled away. Ethan, listen to me, she said desperately. We weren't planning to keep doing it. It was just, you stole, I interrupted. You lied. You cheated. And you're telling me you weren't planning to keep doing it? She was breathing hard now. It wasn't supposed to get this big. James was gripping the table like he wanted to flip it over. So what now? Are you saying you want to come clean? Melissa's eyes darted to Laura. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced down. Froze. I saw the screen light up. Unknown number. Then Laura's phone buzzed too. They both looked pale now. James and I exchanged a glance. Then Laura's phone buzzed again. A single text popped up on the screen. We need to talk. Now. I watched the blood drain from her face. I leaned forward, my voice dangerously quiet. Who is that? Laura's throat bobbed. I don't know. Liar. She didn't say anything. Melissa's phone buzzed again. She turned it over quickly. James was done playing nice. Who is it? Laura and Melissa looked at each other again. Then Laura finally whispered, we're in trouble. James let out a sharp, humorless laugh. No kidding. Laura shook her head. No. I mean real trouble. The tension in the air was thick. People at nearby tables were starting to glance over. Who is it? I asked again. Laura's hands were gripping the table now. Someone we shouldn't have taken from. Melissa let out a shaky breath. They found out. James and I were both silent. Then Laura looked me straight in the eyes. Ethan, I need your help. I stared at her, my hands clenched into fists. Then, finally, I said the only thing I could. You're on your own. She flinched like I had slapped her. Melissa reached for James, but he yanked his arm away. You deserve whatever happens next. Laura's eyes were full of something I hadn't seen before. Fear. I stood up, throwing a couple of bills on the table. James did the same. We walked out together, leaving them sitting there, staring at their phones, waiting for whatever nightmare they had created to catch up to them. As I stepped outside, I took a deep breath. The night air felt sharp and clean. James exhaled beside me. What now? I looked up at the sky. I don't know. I really didn't. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like the fool in the dark. I felt free.